Your mind was trained to survive, not to win. Most people accept a daily script handed to them by habit and convenience and call it life. Listen carefully, because the distance between who you are and who you could be is not talent or luck, it is the quality of the decisions you repeat. One runs from discomfort, the other uses discomfort as a lens. One hides, one studies. One blames, one executes. Imagine your mind as a muscle that remembers how you used it yesterday and will do the same tomorrow unless you change the exercise. If you want to become inescapably effective, start by disciplining your thinking before you try to discipline the world. Picture the morning light cutting through blinds and hitting the dust particles like tiny promises. Hear the coffee machine exhale the first real sound of the day. Feel the chair under your spine telling you everything you have avoided. Taste the dryness on your tongue when you realize you scrolled for an hour and achieved nothing. Smell the paper of an unfinished plan at your desk. These are not decorative details, they are signals. Today, I will give you a protocol to convert those signals into momentum. Do this aloud now and commit to the comment below, "I am discipline." Say it and seal the small contract that will force your brain to adapt. You meet the protagonist of this change in the mirror and in the planning sheet on your desk. Call them Alex for clarity, a version of you who keeps notebooks and regrets the projects that never left outline. Alex grew up in a household where achievement was discussed like a commodity and fear was the currency. The first paragraph of Alex's life is childhood scenes of modest rooms, of counting, and a little voice that learned to avoid mistakes. The second paragraph is the formation years when Alex discovered systems at university, staying up late studying patterns and learning that process beats inspiration. The present shows Alex at a desk in a small apartment with a scrub coffee cup, a half-full calendar, and a library of books bookmarked but unread. This is the person who will become your mirror and your prototype. Now hear a short exchange between the parts inside a room of choices. You say, "What if I fail?" Habit answers, "Then do nothing and you will fail slower." You ask, "How do I begin?" Observer says, "Start with one bright line rule." You challenge, "Who enforces it?" Duty replies, "You do, because your future self will thank you." You object, "What if I cannot keep it?" Practice answers, "You cannot until you practice." You decide, then practice becomes non-negotiable. Feel the texture of that decision. The back of your throat tightens like a rope. Your palms become slightly cool. The air tastes metallic with possibility. The chair creaks as you shift forward. Outside, a bike bell rings and a dog barks 3 times, like a These are sensory anchors to bring you back when the mind wanders. Now expand the diagnosis in plain sight. Most people confuse busyness with progress and urgency with importance. You believe you think freely, but you do not. Your attention lives in a city with broken gates and no customs officers. Thoughts arrive, wander in, and create policy. The symptom is obvious: missed deadlines, unfinished drafts, and evenings where you feel exhausted but empty. The cause is simple: a habit loop that rewards short-term relief and punishes sustained effort. Metaphorically, you have been training your mind to prefer the easy applause of distraction over the sustained labor of creation. When you speak to yourself with a running commentary of excuses, you are doing damage to the muscle of focus. So what is the alternative? The opposite posture looks like a person who schedules silence before inputs, who treats attention as capital and allocates it to projects like an investor. One walks in with a plan and protects it with rituals. One says, "I will secure 2 hours before I allow messages to arrive." One turns the phone into a tool, not a master. You will see 3 real differences in people who build empires with attention. First, they assume agency over their morning. Second, they create a chain of custody for their attention, moving it from one task to the next without leakage. Third, they measure outputs, not activity. Picture Marcus in an office in downtown who blocks his calendar and ignores the buzz of email for 90 minutes. Picture Sarah, the freelance designer who uses a timer and completes deliverables in focused blocks. Picture Elena, the student who replaces scrolling with a single 10-minute planning ritual. These are not stories of inherent genius, they are stories of persistent method. Now the techniques, the 3 essential moves you must master. Observe the stream of thought, question the automatic reaction, substitute deliberately, and practice the replacement with repetition. Technique 1, observe, becomes your daily habit of noticing thoughts without adopting them. Sit for 5 minutes in the morning and become the observer. Name each thought as it comes. The scene is precise. Feel the floor under your feet, hear the breath move in and out, see the window light, and let each thought be a cloud passing. Set a timer. When you catch yourself judgmental, say, "Thank you," and return to breath. Technique 2, question, requires you to interrogate the belief behind the urge. Ask, why do I need to check this now? What consequence am I avoiding? What evidence supports this fear? Technique 3, substitute, means have a prepared action to take when the urge arrives. Instead of reaching for the phone, stand up, stretch, write 1 sentence draft for the project, and breathe. Listen to a longer exchange where these techniques get embodied. You say, "I will try the observer exercise." Guide replies, "Begin now. Breathe in for 4 count, hold for 2, breathe out for 4. You describe, "A thought says, I have emails to check." Guide asks, "What does that thought want you to avoid?" You answer, "It wants to avoid the unpleasant draft." Guide advises, "Substitute, write 1 paragraph and set a 10-minute timer." You question, "What if the paragraph is bad?" Guide answers, "Then you revise later, but you will have momentum." You commit, "All right, I will write for 10 minutes now." Each of these scenes should include sensory detail, so notice the keys under your fingers, the rough paper edge, the hum of the laptop fan, the lemon scent of soap on your hands, the light pressure on your chest when you confront a difficult sentence, the slight dizziness when you stop resisting. Repeat these anchors often until substitution is automatic. At this point, you need a routine, a protocol you can run like a small machine. The morning ritual I prescribe is simple and specific. Rise and do not touch your phone for the first 5 minutes. Sit upright, notice the feeling of your feet on the floor. Breath 3 full cycles, and say aloud, "I am discipline." Then stand and move for 2 minutes, even if that is only stretching. Next, write the 1 task that, if completed, will change your day. Protect a block of focus called the block unshakable. This block is 90 minutes for deep work, or 2 blocks of 50 minutes using the Pomodoro technique, which is work for 25 minutes, then rest 5 minutes, and repeat it 4 times. Pomodoro creates urgency and rest, and is helpful when you face a mountain of tasks. Before you start, turn off notifications, close tabs that are not necessary, and put your phone in another room. The environment matters. The chair, the desk, the ambient sound, even the cup you drink from. Imagine David, the writer who places a heavy ceramic mug on his left and a tactile notepad on his right to create a physical ecosystem that supports work. Imagine Priya, the developer, who uses noise-canceling headphones and a playlist that signals focus. Now, a practical walkthrough of the block schedule. You say, "What do I do minute by minute?" Coach answers, "Minute 0, set timer and declare intention aloud." You reply, "All right, intention declared." Coach says, "Minute 1, silence notifications and open only the document you need." You ask, "What about email?" Coach replies, "Not during the block unless email is the project." You press, "If I get stuck, what then?" Coach says, "Use the 5-minute reset. Stand, walk, breathe, and name the next smallest step." You agree, "I will try this for a week." Add sensory anchors to the routine. Notice the texture of the key travel under your fingers, the slight heat on your wrist from a lamp, the smell of something cooking in a neighbor's apartment, the distant thud of subway trains, the coolness of the air on your forearms. These small sensations will become cues that your brain learns to associate with focus. Use them to create a cognitive context that supports effort. Resistance training for the mind is not heroic, it is methodical. Build micro-victories with daily exercises. Exercise 1 is the 10-minute silence practice once per day. Exercise 2 is the substitution drill. Every time you catch an urge to check social media, replace it with a single productive action, like drafting a paragraph or taking a walk. Exercise 3 is the accountability test. Invite one of the people in your circle, Sarah, Marcus, Elena, David, Priya, Marco, Jason, or Leela, to ask you at the end of the day what you completed. These names are not decorative, they are your scaffolding. Each person has a role. Sarah will remind you gently when you fail. Marcus will challenge you to longer blocks. Elena will proofread your work. David will bring coffee when you meet in the morning. Priya will share a playlist. Marco will set a timer. Jason will be the witness. Leela will celebrate your small wins. Here is a scene of internal conflict with tension that shows what most people face when building a new habit. You see an impossible draft and feel the chest tighten like a fist. Memory whispers, "You never finish long projects." Fear replies, "If you begin, this will reveal your limits." Hope says, "Or it will reveal your capacity." You stand at the threshold and the world crowds in with opinions and notifications. You breathe in and remember the small contract you made, and you choose a single paragraph and begin to write. That moment of decision is visceral. The throat tastes like copper. The fingers tremble for a heartbeat. The shoulders lower by a fraction, and the room seems both too small and entirely adequate. Memory shows the previous failures in high definition, and imagination paints catastrophes. You still act, and that action changes the next second. Anticipate objections and prepare answers. Objection: "I do not have time," is common and true in a certain sense, but time is negotiable. The practical counter is to reallocate 30 to 90 minutes over the week. Objection: "I lack willpower," is also common, but willpower is a muscle that strengthens with repetition, not a trait you either own or don't. Objection: "I cannot focus because my job requires multitasking." That is a workflow problem and a boundary problem. Solve it by batching similar tasks and communicating a protected focus time to teammates. When someone objects loudly, push practical phrases like, "I will respond at this time," or "I will update after my block." Now, a moment of tension where external challenges test the new routine. A deadline arrives. A stakeholder named Marco sends urgent messages. You receive a call from Jason with a crisis. Your old habit screams, "Respond immediately," and feel a temporary relief. Your new rule says, protect the block and schedule 15 minutes after the block to check all emergent items. You choose the block, and the crisis waits respectfully and often resolves with less noise than if you had reacted. When you defend a block, you will feel friction from others and from your own mind. That friction is proof you are moving past the comfort zone. When you persist, others adapt and begin to treat your time as real. That is part of the social proof you need. Now imagine the temporal epilogue, the real proof that this protocol works if you apply it. 1 month in your calendar shows a consistent pattern. You have completed 22 solid blocks, and you can point to 3 projects that moved forward. You have internalized the morning rule, and the phone sits in another room routinely. Friends like Sarah and David notice you are calmer and more present. You keep a simple metric, hours of deep focus, tracked weekly, and it rises slowly. In 30 days, the neural pathways that supported distraction will have started to rewire, and habit becomes easier. 3 months in, your projects have momentum. Elena has collaborated on a piece you publish. Marcus has given you a small paid assignment because he saw your consistent output. You now complete the first draft of a significant project within a week rather than laboring for months. The ritual is stable, your blocks feel natural, and you have a reliable reset when stress appears. You notice your language shifts. You say "I will" rather than "I might." Your list of micro-victories grows and your confidence becomes credible, not hypothetical. 6 months later, the compound effect is visible. A client like Priya or a manager like Marco entrusts you with higher stakes because you have shown consistent execution. Your calendar has become a tool of construction, not a map of obligations. You have completed 2 major projects and several smaller experiments. Your morning ritual is a non-negotiable part of your identity, and people around you treat your time with respect because you treat it with respect. The sensory landscape has changed. You wake up to the smell of focused work like a professional smells coffee. The taste of success is less about applause and more about the clean satisfaction of a day well executed. During this process, remember small practical rules. Keep a list of the next smallest steps. Never begin a block without a declared intention, and always end a block with a note of progress, even if it is a single sentence. Use a visible artifact, like a physical notebook or a ceramic mug, to anchor habits. When someone interrupts, explain briefly and reschedule. Use a weekly review with friends like Sarah or Jason to reinforce accountability. If you need technical help, use a simple tool for Pomodoro and log your completed cycles. One more tension and resolution to close with. Wait. You look back and see months of half-finished projects and feel the shame rise. A voice says, "You always start and never finish." You press your palm to the desk and remember a small promise you wrote 30 days ago. You read the first line and then the second, and you begin to act not for validation, but for the integrity of finishing what you began. If you have taken this in and feel motivated, make the commitment publicly now. In the comments, write, "I am disciplined," and state the one habit you will replace today. Begin with "My focus today." When you declare, you create a social contract, and that helps convert intention into action. Subscribe to become part of a community that practices daily and shares results. I will keep posting protocols, and you will find that when you practice method, the results approximate inevitable. For now, do this immediate practical instruction. Breathe 3 full breaths, set a single intention, and protect a block of 90 minutes or 2 Pomodoro cycles for your most important task. Put your phone in another room, stand and stretch, and then begin. Remember, discipline is not suffering. It is construction. The last thing to hold on to is this short sentence that will serve as your mantra when distraction knocks. Focus begins when the video ends.